Aggressor Adventures. For over 35 years, we've designed adventure vacations around the world, helping travelers experience the majesty of the oceans and the call of the wild on our dive trips, river cruises, and safaris. From the Galapagos Islands and the South Pacific to the land of the Faroes on the Nile River, with personalized service in every vacation destination. Aggressor, Adventures of a Lifetime.
From the Apostrophe Podcast Network.
You're surviving life with Les Stroud.
I'm working on jealousy. I'm not into hate. I'm working on anger, 'cause I'm not into rage.
There are studio musicians and there are performing musicians. And the best of them are those musicians who truly are the best of both worlds. Absolute masters in the recording studio and yet able to command their musical performance on stage to the delight and awe of the audience. This is Dave Rosenthal. 28 years as Billy Joel's keyboardist and musical director. He has toured the world and played all of the stages, multiple times, that the rest of us can only dream about. In this part 2 of my chat with Dave, we will go there, to the stages of the world where he joins Billy Joel, Cyndi Lauper, Robert Palmer, Enrique Iglesias, Ritchie Blackmore, Rainbow, and Steve Vai. These are the words of musician and artist Dave Rosenthal.
And I really like when a lot of the genres get, melded together. And that's elements of that's element, because it's all good stuff. I'm very proud of those, but they really didn't make any money. There were several points where I had to consciously make the decision, do I want to be a musician and make a living? Or do I want to go get a day job so I can play my own music? And to me, the most important thing is just, I am a musician. This is what I do. I don't mind playing somebody else's music, I could never write a song like Billy Joel could write a song. And I love his music. It never gets old to me.
What do you think of where music has gone in the last 20 years? You've been in the thick of it for all that time.
Yeah. It's changed a lot. I don't think that there are very many up-and-coming artists that do what Billy does, not just stylistically. He is that actual live performer thing. And a lot of people come up nowadays using technology to record their ideas and very good musicianship, and then learn how to perform sort of after the fact and become performers in some cases. It's all very different now. It's who's to say what's better or what's worse, but I come from a place of we're really up there playing. I love the fact that every show that we do with Billy comes out completely different. Even if we play the same songs, no two shows come out the same. And it just really makes it a lot of fun.
I saw progressive rock fade. Everybody got soft. Phil got soft. Even Peter Gabriel took a different turn. And then I saw Rush kind of continue to hold the mantle. It's like whatever Rush was doing, Rush was still...
Well, Rush got heavily into synthesizers for a while there, too.
They did. But they still, musically, they didn't soften up too much and become... And Radiohead came along. What else did you see happen in terms of that style of meandering, experimental music, which I would say, to me, it felt like progressive rock started from classical musicians who kind of were like looking over the fence going, hang on a sec, mate, what are they doing? Well, hell, I can play that better than that. It's like they're looking over the fence and going, hang on, let me show you. And they come in and now they're doing, Steve Howe doing 7 fret stretches with his fingers, and they brought this in. I loved that. Yeah. I just thought, what is this? Even the Moody Blues, where they were more the pop, blending of it. But when you watched Yes do their thing, for example, then Rush, it all fades. You got Rush, you got Radiohead, maybe Tool. What did you see happen over the last 20 years with that kind of big experimental music, and where is it now?
I think each generation, as it evolves, tends to rebel against what came before it. Do you know what I mean? As the progressive thing became really popular, which was more complex in its nature and And then the rebellion to that was when disco came in, and everything was like very simple, just boom, right here. And then songs, they put pop songs over it, and they became, there were some good songs in that era, certainly, but there was more of a focus on simplicity, which was somewhat of a rebellion to that. And then you had all the synths that were in that era. And then the rebellion against all the synths was when guitar became king in the 80s. Keyboards were still there, but they had more of a supportive role. And then there was this really big, polished sound in the 80s, and the rebellion against that was the 90s with the grunge. Some of it happens that way, that people just want something completely different, so they go kind of over here as a rebellion from having been there. And I really like when a lot of the genres get, melded together. And that's elements of that's element, because it's all good stuff. That to me makes it really interesting to listen to when they combine.
Well, you touched on something, because you just kind of gave a quick brief history of rock and roll in many ways, and I've often said that I was too young for rock and roll the first time, and then I was too old for it the second time. And you said, well, when was the second time? To me, the second time really was grunge. If you listen to Pearl Jam, if you listen to Mike McCready playing a solo, he's just doing Freebird. And if you ask them, look, man, we're just playing rock and roll. Yeah. They will never call themselves grunge or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a cyclical thing. I asked Mike Klink when I was speaking with him on the podcast about it, and he felt that things just always do tend to come back around, and the good stuff. So my question is, well, when's progressive rock coming back around? Because, man, I miss it, you know? I miss the big meandering songs, Rick Wakeman, doing his whole King Henry VIII, extravaganza. Or is it ELP that did Pictures at an Exhibition?
Yes.
Right? I miss that. Do you think do you know where that's happening anywhere right now?
Well, there is a big prog rock market that's underground. I shouldn't say underground, it's not a fair word. Sort of, it still has a cult following. There's a bunch of prog rock bands, and then there's bands like Dream Theater, which do the prog rock thing, but have the metal guitars with it, and they're totally progressive, and they've done really well. They're very popular, great musicians. And there's a lot of stuff like that that's sort of underground. And that sort of led to the Happy the Man reunion, because people were starting to say, what about this band? Maybe we can bring them back, because they were having these prog fests, which were these like multi-day festivals of all progressive rock bands. And they thought that, so what led to Happy the Man reforming was that they wanted to have, wouldn't it be amazing if we got Happy the Man to reunite and headline at this prog rock festival? And it was just a crazy idea by these guys, and they got in touch, and then they were like, let's do it. And then that's when Kit Watkins didn't want to do it, and they asked me, and then so we ended up doing a batch of gigs, and it worked, and then we started writing some material, and eventually we made a record. And that's how that came about.
Where do you see it going? And I'm asking you on two fronts. One, as a professional musician, the big picture, and two, for Dave Rosenthal.
I'm very fortunate to be with, Billy happens to be one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He hasn't put out any new material in 20 somewhat years, and yet his songs are so iconic. His catalog is so classic and so beloved all over the world. We keep doing these shows that are just getting bigger and bigger. He's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm with him 27 years now, and it's going stronger than ever. We don't keep a rigorous schedule. Now, sadly, because of the pandemic, we're not able to do the shows, but that's hopefully a short-term thing. But, we were doing a couple of shows a month, and we're doing this residency at Madison Square Garden, which is really amazing. We're like 73 shows in a row in 73 months, sellouts, and he says he'll keep doing it as long as demand continues. And nobody in their wildest dreams thought it would go more than a year or two, maybe 3 if it's a success, and we're 7 years in. It's just incredible. And for me, it's really special to be doing all these shows at Madison Square Garden, because when I was growing up in New Jersey, that's where I went to shows as a kid. My first concert I ever went to was there. It was the Edgar Winter Group on the Frankenstein was their big hit single at the time. And it was really funny, because I don't know, maybe it was 13 or 14 at the time, and that was my first concert. And later, fast forward many years, I'm in Rainbow, and my keyboard tech was a tech on that tour. And then Rick Derringer was in the band, and then a few years later, when I started, I did Cyndi Lauper's True Colors tour, and Rick Derringer ends up in the band. And I'm getting to work with these people that I saw at my very first concert. But anyway, so it's really, Madison Square Garden is it's a special place to so many people. It's so iconic, but even more so to me, because I grew up going to shows there. I saw Yes there, I saw Led Zeppelin, I saw Pink Floyd, so many, Queen, and I can go on and on. It's pretty amazing to be I've played there now something like 103 times, which is crazy because, any musician would be thrilled to play there once, as I was the first time I played there. So it's kind of surreal to be able to have played there so many times.
Right now, I'll go and I'll play harmonica with Journey once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And every time, right before getting up on that stage.
It's a pinch yourself moment.
It is. I'm saying, okay, there's 27,000 people tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then, but what's interesting is, regardless of the wonderful, blessed opportunity of being able to play with some of our prior heroes, and I'm going to put this question on you, but I find myself, it's almost like, even in that one split moment though, and I'm about to play with Journey and there's 27,000 people and Def Leppard opened up for us, but for a moment I'm like, hey, wait a minute, does the sound man have my thing in the right place? I still have a spot where I stop and it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter. I still need to sound the best I can and be the best I can. And so I take the child in me that I don't forget to let him loose. For a moment, the child goes, oh yeah. And then the adult goes, hey, have you got the right harp in your hand? Is your mic turned on? And I become a professional, I think, in that moment. Do you still take the time to be the child?
I never lose touch with that. I'm so grateful to be able to do this at my age and make a living at it. I know so many great musicians who weren't lucky and didn't get the first break or didn't, whatever, and has nothing to do with their ability. They're brilliant. It just didn't happen. And this it's a tough thing. So, I've had some luck. I try to create my own luck as best I can by putting yourself in the right places, and you try to reduce the odds, but things have kind of worked out. And also I kind of change over the years and adapted to the fact that, wait a minute, I can play music. I always wanted to play my own music. I have my own band, and I made this great record with Happy the Man as well as my Red Dawn, and I'm very proud of those. But they really didn't make any money. There were several points where I had to consciously make the decision, do I want to be a musician and make a living, or do I want to go get a day job so I can play my own music? And to me, the most important thing is just, I am a musician. This is what I do. I don't mind playing somebody else's music, I could never write a song like Billy Joel could write a song. And I love his music. It never gets old to me. Getting to play music that lights up people's faces, that ignites a crowd, it doesn't matter to me that I'm not the guy who wrote it. I really don't care. I'm still very fortunate to be part of something like that.
Worst moment on stage?
The only time I ever get nervous on stage is when my gear doesn't work. And that's a tricky thing because I'm totally reliant on it. I'm always very at the forefront of technology. That's when I really, I'm very comfortable. Any mistake that I make, and anybody who says that there's no mistakes is lying, because everybody makes mistakes. It's how you play your way out of it that matters. But everybody makes mistakes. I can play my way out of pretty much anything, and I can fake something if I temporarily get lost for a split second or whatever. And 99% of the people don't know. That happens, but when the gear doesn't work, that's when it becomes challenging, because you have to figure out how am I going to get through this song? I don't have that synth that just went down. How am I going to get through this? And that's when it's extra important to be more calm, collected, and cool on stage, because as soon as you panic, your thoughts become scattered. I'm fortunate that when situations like that happen, that I'm hyper focused. I'm playing the song, but my brain is going 80 million miles an hour, trying to figure out, okay, I have this part coming up in 16 bars, and at the end of the song I have to play this. How am I going to do that? Well, I can play that on the organ, I can play this, I can cover this part that way, and I can get through the song like this, and I'll survive while the computer's restarting or whatever technical issue may have happened. Nowadays, I'm very fortunate. I have actually 2 redundant keyboard systems running exactly at the same time in real time. They're both growing all the time. So because everything is computer based now, if the computer happens to crash, which computers do, or if there's a software issue, a glitch, whatever, I just switch the outputs and now I'm playing the other computer and nobody knew. So and then they restart the computer while I keep playing away, and I just kind of keep going. Yeah, there was one time when my whole rig went down. And but because I also have a fail-safe for that, because I have a Hammond organ that's going through a Leslie, and that's independent of my whole MIDI system. So if the whole thing blows up, I can play organ. So I played the parts, but they were on organ. it didn't sound like what people were expecting.
Which band was this?
But this is with Billy Joel.
Okay.
And it didn't sound like what people were expecting, but I got through the song, and all the parts were there. There's times like that. But in the old days, in Rainbow, for example, my OBXA, I had an Oberheim, and it went down at one point. Now, I didn't have a spare. There were no spares in those days. And it had, not only that, but there weren't very many people who knew how to fix it. We were on a tour in Europe, and I had to send it to London. So I went, I think, a week without it, which in those days was probably 5-6 shows. So, I'll make this work on the Moog. I'll play this part on the organ. And you do what you got to do. You make it work.
If you're enjoying this podcast, check out my engaging and multi-part interview with producer Mike Klink. From David's own band, Red Dawn, the album is called Never Say Surrender. And this is the first track, Flying High. You know what? Aggressor Adventures, while being the largest liveaboard dive operation in the world, is so much more. They have safaris and excursions to the corners of the globe, exciting opportunities to see vast archaeology, history, and natural wonders. I've been traveling and diving with them for years, and I cannot endorse them enough for being simply the best there is at making sure your worldwide adventure is a safe, comfortable, and exciting one. Take it from a guy who has done a lot of adventuring. Who do I travel with on my vacations? Aggressor Adventures. You're surviving life with Les Stroud.
Most memorable, and I know you have thousands, so pick one of your top favorite moments on stage playing. It doesn't, whomever it might have been with, or...
Well, one of the nice things about, one of the perks about playing with Billy is that we get a lot of really iconic guest artists who come up and do a song with us. And that's a lot of fun. And there's been so many. Peter Frampton, I could go on, I don't want to leave people out. John Bon Jovi, John Mellencamp, Tony Bennett, Chick Corea, Itzhak Perlman, the show I think you were at one of those. Yeah. The list just goes on and on. Steve Miller. And these are people, I grew up listening to their records. And to be able to play that, when we were playing Shea Stadium, we were closing Shea Stadium, and Paul McCartney came up to join us. We didn't know if he was going to make it. He was coming in from London, and it just worked out last minute. He shows up just in time for the encore, and we had practiced. I saw her standing there in case he made it in time, because we didn't know if he was going to get there. We played that and it was fine, and then afterwards, Billy said to him, "You want to do another one?" And Paul said, "No, that's okay, I'm good. It's your show, but thanks. This was fun." And he walks off to the side of the stage, and Billy plays. In those days, Piano Man always ended the show. Basically, the show was over, but Paul was still there, and Billy looks over, and Billy's a huge Beatles fan, and he goes back and said, "Paul, what do you think?" And Paul goes, "Let's do Let It Be." Now, we didn't practice this, and going back to the spontaneous thing, here we are, and he walks up. So Paul walks up to Billy's piano and sits down and starts playing the intro to Let It Be. Okay, here we go. First of all, we're all getting chills because we can't believe it. Even Billy was just amazed. Look, it's Paul McCartney playing my piano. We're going to do Let It Be. And, okay, here we are. We never played the song. We've all heard it before. We've all covered it in bands, but we've never played it. And there we are in front of 60,000 people with Paul McCartney, a Beatle, at Shea Stadium. And we have to play Let It Be, which had never been performed at Shea Stadium because it wasn't written when they played there. So it was a perfect choice. And that ended up being the last song I ever played at Shea Stadium.
Did you go to the Billy organ, Billy Preston organ sound?
Well, actually, for the middle thing, I thought, again, we had the intro. I don't play in the intro because Paul's covering the piano bits, and I'm thinking, okay, I got this big organ moment in the middle of the song. What can I use? Okay, I can use this patch, and I'm thinking, I'm looking like I'm having a good time, but my mind's going 80 million miles an hour. So I decided, well, Captain Jack, in the beginning of that, I had this cathedral sound that I use. I'll use that for that part. And while we're going through the song, I'm working out how that part would go. I'm working out it in my mind because I'm not going to get a chance to try it. And we get to that part of the song. I go, I know it's going to go to the 4 chord, and I'm going to say, okay, so here we go. And I got it. and when it comes, but yeah, that was a real magic moment. And it was spontaneity, and it was just incredible to.
And your guitar player had to get that guitar solo.
Yeah.
Which I actually know that solo because that was one of the early solos I ever learned.
Well, he's a big Beatles fan also, so he knew it. Yeah.
He just launched into it. Yeah. Probably either version he could have picked from.
Yeah.
Mine in a situation which could have been a near absolute catastrophe was I'd already played with Alice Cooper in the charity concerts, and that was beyond a thrill anyway, and playing with Tommy Shaw and Stephen Stills and all that. 2 years later, I got a call and said, "Hey, listen, Les, this year Alice Cooper's invited Robbie Krieger from The Doors to come up and play, and they're going to play Roadhouse Blues, and well, they were wondering if you'd come up and play the harmonica part." And that was the first harmonica riff I ever learned in my life, was Roadhouse Blues. And next thing I knew, there I was on stage with Robbie Krieger saying, "Hey Les, if you see me come to the middle of the stage, would you mind joining me and we'll do a little solo back and forth?" And I'm just inside going,
I'm sure you hit it out of the park. I saw your clips with Journey. They're fantastic, too.
Oh, well, and I was inside. I'm just like, oh, this is just stupid. Yeah. Like, sure, Robbie Krieger, I'll play a solo with you.
Right.
And then we go to rehearse it. The whole band was tuned down a half step for Alice's voice, and I didn't have a half step on harmonica.
Yeah.
I had to drive across town to an old African-American black man blues player who happened to have an A-flat harmonica. Pick it up from him, beat up, ratty old harmonica, whip back to the concert hall, okay? I get in the concert hall, I'm running down the backstage. They're already live, and I hear the opening notes to Roadhouse Blues starting. I run up on the stage, and I hit the mic on time for the first harmonica riff. And even Alice was just like, oh, he's here.
Yeah, like nothing happened.
Yeah, and so, you get these moments, and I know you've got dozens more.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just sort of, kind of think back about where life has led us from 14-year-old wannabes watching Yes and Genesis up there.
To actually be with the guy actually doing it, And I just wanted to share another moment that was really cool. Peter Frampton came up and played with us, and we did Show Me the Way, and he had the talk box, and we also did Baby I Love Your Way. Now, I actually, this is a side note, I actually played on a cover of Baby I Love Your Way that went to #1. It was a combination of Baby I Love Your Way medley into Freebird by a band called Will to Power, and it was #1 in the 80s. So obviously I knew that song, and I used to cover it in high school, but there's that really famous Rhodes solo in it that's like iconic, and of course now I thought, Billy will probably want to play that. But just in case he doesn't, I'm going to learn it. So I learned that, and I get the sound exactly with the phase-shifted Rhodes and everything. And there we are in sound check, and we're doing it. And Peter looks over at Billy, and he goes, "Dave, you play it." and I was like, okay. And so there's, anyway, fast forward to the show that night, and Peter turns around, and he's playing, he's looking at me, and he's smiling, and I'm playing this iconic solo with Peter Frampton right there. And it was these magical moments that you remember, and there's been so many of them. Like I'm not doing justice to the 25 stories that I'm not even telling right now. Aerosmith, we had Steven Tollard played with us at Walk This Way with him at Shea Stadium, but Joe Perry came up and did Walk This Way with us at the Garden, and we after sound check.
I was there that night.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I was there the night that Joe Perry played with you. Yeah.
That's,
yeah, I was there with Peter Cleach, who you know.
Yes.
Yeah, we were there. We were in the audience that night.
Wow.
You got me tickets, so.
No, I did. I remember that you were there. I just didn't realize it was the same show.
But I know where you're going. Go ahead. Yeah.
So at soundcheck, I was talking to Joe for a little while, and I said, I just got to tell you, man, I actually saw you play here with Aerosmith at the Garden in 1977. I was a kid in high school, or maybe it might have been 1976, and I remember joking about it because we had the last seat center from the stage. So we were actually the absolute furthest you could possibly be inside the Garden and still be inside the Garden. The seats used to go all the way up to the rafters, and we had to like duck a little bit because the concrete was like right here. And in those days there were no video screens. So I watched little ants on the stage playing, but you know what? To this day, I still remember it. And I shared that story with Joe Perry, and he just looked at me and he said, "I don't remember anything from the 70s.
Classic.
Yeah. So, which was a great line.
No, was that not the show that backstage after the show he passed out?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
and that was in that.
But he turned out to be okay. They took him.
I remember watching him walk off stage, and I remember turning to Peter Cleach.
We didn't know that until after.
He doesn't look good.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he didn't look good. The last 30 seconds of being on stage, and then you just saw him kind of turn and walk off stage. That's not right there. Something's wrong. And
I couldn't see his face because I was behind him, and he played okay, but we didn't know that had happened because we just went on with the show. He left the stage and he under his own power, and he seemed okay. We didn't really know, and then heard the story after the show ended.
Outside of Billy, what do you see as next for you musically?
I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But what I've been taking advantage of this time we have during the pandemic to write, and I'm writing music. I'm on a sort of a creative jag now, but I'm not trying to say to myself, I want this to be this or that or that. I'm just kind of letting it go and see what happens. So maybe there'll be a follow-up interview from this a year from now, and we'll see what I have from it. But I really don't know. But I'm feeling creative, and I'm utilizing this downtime as much as possible to be productive. Sure, everybody has down days and it's tough to get through this, but I kind of try to kick myself in the butt and figure, you know, what can I do to be productive here? And I'm able to do that. I'm able to write music. I'm also working on designing what will become the next generation of my keyboard rig. I don't know when that will get implemented because everything now is totally fine, but whenever that is, I'm already ahead of the curve because I'm learning new technologies and I'm learning new software, and it's a great opportunity to that because it's to do that because it's time consuming. I feel somewhat that this massive amount of time that we have off from life and from the world is a gift, and it's all about what you do with it, and I'm trying to do the most I can with it.
There's silver linings in all of this, you know, and I think about people in healthcare that I know, for example, have become very adept now at doing telehealth and discovering that their patient who lives 2.5 hours away now doesn't have to drive over a mountain pass in the middle of winter just to come in for a checkup they could have done on telehealth. And so it's very beneficial for them to have learned that, forced upon them because of COVID-19. And it's silver linings. It's just this constant look for silver linings.
Right. Well, I think that's something to apply really to everything in life.
When we talked about meeting the other people and that, you know, I did get a moment, and this moment was just for me. This wasn't playing on stage, but I was backstage and I jammed backstage with James Cott. For a harmonica player, that's like coming home, and it's like, this is who I used to listen to. This is who I used to train myself to put on it. It was a CD, but still put on James Cott CDs and take cassette tapes and try to get those riffs and stuff. That's where I started. So to be backstage and on his 80th birthday, just me and him. Steve Miller was in the audience, actually.
Really?
I met Steve Miller that night. And I went and played in front of Steve Miller, because I opened up for James Cott. And Steve was in the audience. But before that, just backstage, just James and I, and I think he just knew, because he said, "Well, grab a harmonica there. Let's play a little bit. You know, we'll play a little together." And we just passed a riff back and forth.
That's awesome.
You got to go. You know, I'm not someone who collects a lot of autographs, but moments are pretty. To collect a moment is bigger.
Do you know the Good Rats?
The Good Rats.
Yeah. No, oh my God, I got to turn you on to them. They're in the Long Island Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the most famous band that nobody ever heard of. They were legends in the tri-state area. I'll have to send you some of their music. So they were just two. They didn't have keyboards, but two guitars. They had progressive moments that'll make your head spin. They had vocals, 3-part harmony that would just like you knock your socks off, and they did it live. And they used to play in bars back when people would go to. I used to have a fake ID and go into bars and you were allowed to before, when the drinking age was 17 or 18, whatever it was. I used to go see them play all the time, and they were characters. They would joke. They would tell dirty jokes. They would do all kinds of wacky, silly shit, and then play the most mind-boggling music so tight that it was just off the rails. And
can I find them online?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Good Rats.
The Good Rats, yeah. So they had this song. Their first album was called Tasty, and then they had the second album is Rats to Riches, and then they had Rhapsody in Blue is one of their albums. The second album was Rhapsody. Anyway,
where do you think you get your humor from, by the way? Sorry.
Is it good or bad? And then I'll
No, it's good. But have you not ever noticed how much musicians love a good sense of humor?
Yeah. I don't know. It's innate. I don't know if it's good, or I don't know if it's funny or not. I mean, some of my jokes
it's not
are corny.
funny, but I'm still
right. But you're just curious what to avoid.
Yeah, exactly. How'd you end up with it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Don't you find though how much musicians enjoy humor?
Yes. I mean, humor is a big part of what we do. I mean, when you go on tour, you're on a tour bus all this time, and you're basically living with people. And then if you do 5 shows a week, let's say on a busy tour, 10 hours a week, you're doing what you're there to do, and all the rest of the time you're waiting to do it and hanging out. So the hang becomes a big part of it. And if you're miserable, nobody wants to be around you.
That's what they always said about the Beatles, that they could not believe how funny they were, how they were constantly joking around with each other, constantly chirping each other and taking a strip off each other. They were kids. Let's remember that. But, that's what makes up a good band. Right. Once you got that, I found that, sometimes when you got the one guy who's just too serious, the hang doesn't last.
The interesting thing is also that that's about chemistry, and music is about chemistry. The chemistry that happens off stage gets carried onto the stage, and it becomes part of the music. And when you have camaraderie off the stage and everybody's getting along and you're having a good time, that comes out in the music in a very intangible way. And in a way that if you rehearse till you were blue in the face, you can't replicate that. Either it's there or it isn't. And that's a big part of what makes a great live
Oh,
performance.
that's so true. You think about the ones that just rehearse the shit out of it and have a template, and people they punch the clock when they come in to play the band for whomever, or Rihanna or somebody like that, and then you see temper tantrums and breakdowns and screaming fits and things like that. And that's, I watched the Ken Burns Jazz series. Same thing there, talking about different bands where it was horrifying to play in so-and-so's band, but a lifelong party to play in the other guy's band. And now you could see that they come to stage, and these guys were the top jazz musicians of the day, and they would kill it because they were having fun.
Yeah.
And they could tear a strip out of each other. And then the ones who were too serious, if you're in Benny Goodman's band, God help you.
Yeah.
Because it was serious and hardcore.
And that's a big part of Billy Joel's band too, is that we all get along great. We have a great time. We hang out. That camaraderie comes onto the stage. Yes, everybody's an amazing musician, but that's almost like a given. Like, yeah, that better be there, or you wouldn't be here in the first place. But knowing that that's there and taking it to another level because there's that camaraderie, it just makes with Billy included. I mean, we get on that stage and there is just that chemistry that just goes all the way around. It all just works, and it comes out in the music.
Of course, you're only saying that because you're being recorded right now.
Of course, yeah.
Want to go to dinner?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like so many people I've had the good fortune of meeting in my life and subsequently gone on to engage in artistic endeavors with, Dave Rosenthal, unassuming, mild-mannered, and humble, is a powerhouse of an artist. I just didn't know it when I got involved with him musically. Yes, of course, I knew he played with Billy Joel, but I never care about what someone has done. I care about what they might be able to do with me. It's not that I'm self-centered, it's just that creating art is fickle. And you can sit in the room with the greatest artists and creators of all time and just not get along with them. When it comes to Dave Rosenthal, let's just say I cannot wait for the opportunity to see him work his magic in the studio, or maybe even one day on the other side of the stage. When you look up on stage at mega rock stars like Billy Joel, or their band members like Dave Rosenthal, remember that they are simply human beings too, focused and driven human beings, passionate about music. And that's totally and completely inspiring. This podcast is, as the saying used to go, brought to you by Aggressor Adventures. Choose your adventure. Surviving Life with Les Stroud is presented by the Apostrophe Podcast Network and is mixed by Keith Ullman. You're surviving life with me, Les Stroud. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Survivorman Les Stroud, as I have hundreds of videos there and more going up every week. From Survivorman Archive to Bigfoot to wild harvesting tips to urban disaster survival. It's all there and it's all free. My brand new series, Wild Harvest, featuring local foraging and turning those wild edibles into sumptuous dishes, is now on National Geographic Asia, PBS stations in the United States, and Cottage Life Television in Canada. The brand new special, Surviving Disasters with Les Stroud, is now on a PBS station near you in the United States or on my YouTube channel. And my brand new children's book, Wild Outside, written for your kids. It's all about getting your kids into the out of doors. And it's out now. Google it. I'm an easy find on Google for those and so much more that I produce during any given year, no matter what's happening on the world stage. We'll figure this life out. Together. Cue that rippin' harmonica solo, Keith.
Aggressor Adventures. For over 35 years, we've designed adventure vacations around the world, helping travelers experience the majesty of the oceans and the call of the wild on our dive trips, river cruises, and safaris. From the Galapagos Islands and the South Pacific to the land of the Faroes on the Nile River, with personalized service in every vacation destination. Aggressor. Adventures of a lifetime.